Right, as you would have just seen, the body is back off the Regal van. That is something in a previous episode I said I was never going to do. It was all going to stay together and that was going to be it. Hi everyone, welcome back to MEC-TEC. As you can see, I just said there that the body is back off, as you would have seen. There are a couple of reasons for this. One is I'm not small, and having worked on the Stobart van for quite a while, if you've seen that series, it is tricky for access for me because it's such a small van and it was just hard. So I thought, well, I'm going to take the body back off while I've got it at the stage I'm at now where there's nothing else to take off apart from the bolts that will bolt it down. The second reason being, I'm being a tart and I want to satin lacquer the underside of the body. I know it sounds stupid, but I stone chipped it all when I first did all the fiberglassing work and it looks great, but now it's all got dusty. It's horrendously hard to keep clean. So I want to give it a coat of satin lacquer just to sort of smooth in the bumps on the stone chip, if you like, a bit, and give it a bit more of a sort of smooth finish so that it's easy to keep clean if you want to run a jet wash under there or whatever else. So they are the reasons why I've took the body back off again. Not ideal, I know, as far as garage space is concerned, but there we go. So the first thing we're going to do is do the painting on the underside of the body so that can be drying, and then we can actually look at starting getting the engine and gearbox in, which has obviously all been rebuilt. It's sitting on the workbench ready to go in. So now this is back off, I'm pleased I've done it because it can be so much easier to go plonk and it's in. So that is going to be really good. So as I say, first job, we're going to lacquer the underside of that body, then we'll go from there, see where it takes us. Right, from under the van, I'm hoping you're going to be able to see this. You can see how dusty this is. This was real dark grey when I first put it on. So what I think I'm going to have to do is more like that grey there. You can see the difference from the dust laying on this bit and not laying on that bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some panel wipe in a spray bottle. I'm going to spray it all down and use a paintbrush, I think, to clean it all. That should get it back to being nice and clean again. And then we can obviously then put the satin lacquer over it. I'm only using aerosol satin lacquer. But there's a few marks under here where the body obviously sits now. But I'm not going to worry too much about that because you don't see that once the chassis is back on, and obviously it ain't going to rust because it's fiberglass. So just obviously want to make the bits that do show look nice, if that makes sense. So I'm going to get set up with some cleaner, see how we get on with that, and I'll come back to you when I make a bit more progress and show you what's going on. Right, as you can see, it's quite a difference. It's just drying off. As you can see, these dark spots are just where it's drying. You can see the difference between that and this. So that is what I'm going for, that dark colour again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over it all. I've been using a spray bottle with some panel wipe, a paintbrush and a microfiber to wipe it off with after. So I'm going to get all that done all over the underside of the body, and then we can get some lacquer on here, and then we can start, hopefully, the exciting bit of putting the engine and box in. Top banana. Right, as you can probably see by that, I've cleaned it all up all the way round. Now it does look very patchy as far as being light grey and dark grey. I don't know why it's gone that way, whether it's just because it's on fiberglass and it's soaked in different or what, but I've done a little test patch, as you can see, on that arch there with the satin lacquer. Now I'm using the Pro XL satin lacquer, but a single stage, a single part I should say, so it's not a 2K, it's just a normal can, but that should be absolutely fine for under here. So it's UV and petrol resistant, it says there, so that is probably all we need for underneath the van. So I'm going to basically go over the whole of the underside now with that lacquer, and hopefully it'll do what I'm hoping it'll do and just bring the darkness down a bit on the colour. As you can see where that's wet, it has taken the colour down, but obviously we won't know what it looks like properly until it actually dries. So only time will tell on that side of things. So I'm going to get this start at the back here, get this lacquered, work my way forward, and hopefully it will have some sort of an effect in making it look a little bit more sort of I don't know what the word is, but just not so dull. So yeah, let's carry on. is the next day, and the underside is now dry. It's done exactly what I wanted it to, and giving it that darker effect. Now I did run out of paint yesterday, so I've had to order some more for the very front sections up near above those letters. So I'm going to obviously wait for that. So while we're waiting for that, we're going to jump onto the engine and gearbox. You would have seen me put the clutch in quite a while ago on the bench. That's obviously all in there now. And inside the bell housing, I've got the clutch arm in there now with the new roller type release bearing. And with that in there, to show you, it moves. It's nowhere near where I've cut my hole. So that is absolutely superb. So that is right on where it needs to be. And obviously the other end's the same, nowhere near the hole. So it's absolutely spot on. I've managed to find all the nuts and washers that hold it on. So I'm going to get this bolted onto there. I need to find that there's 2 long bolts that go through the top here. I need to find those because I've never actually had an engine and gearbox together, so I've probably got them somewhere, but I just got to find them. And then we can get the starter motor re-bolted back on again, which obviously bolts through the gearbox housing as well. So I'm going to do that, and I'll come back to you, and hopefully then we might be able to get it in the chassis. Lovely jubbly. Right, this is the clutch that I'm going to go with. This actually came on one of the engines that I've had apart over the last few months and years and all the rest of it. And as you can see by the material on that, it is basically brand new. It's really, really good. There's tons of life left in that, and it is a genuine Borg & Beck clutch as well, which is nice. I'll just give it a little clean up. I'll give this surface a nice clean up with first of all a wire brush on a drill, and then a scotch pad with some brake cleaner. Got all that lovely and smooth again. Same with the back. Again, this was all sort of quite pitted and rusty. Not bad, but just sort of surface. So I've gone over that with a wire brush and a drill again, and then a scotch pad with some brake cleaner, and that is all lovely and smooth now. So as soon as that starts obviously mating with that, that will run that smooth anyway within a couple of pulls away, you know, so that will be absolutely fine. So I'm going to get the torque bolts, sorry, not torque bolts, the flywheel bolts torqued up, get the locking tabs knocked over so they can't come undone, and then we can get this clutch fitted on the engine. Lovely jubbly. Rightio, as you can see, we've got the engine turned around. I've got a pair of grips just clamped onto the edge of the flywheel, not the bit that the clutch rides on, so we're not going to damage any surfaces there. Now I need to actually just look at the spec of these bolts on the flywheel. I think they are, I'm not going to say because I can't remember. Hang on a second. Should have looked this up before I started filming. They are 29 pound-feet of torque. So we'll dial this up to 30, close enough, and give it some welling. Hopefully the grips will hold. There we go. There we go, that's those 3 torqued up. Now, one thing that I did, just because I thought it might make life a little bit easier, you can see obviously the locking tab on here. I actually lifted the little ears on the locking tab up slightly, bent them up in the vise slightly, just so that now that it's on there, you can get something under it to obviously lever them up, because otherwise, if they're sitting on a brand new locking tab right close to the whatever they're up against, obviously you can't really get anything under them to pop them out. So now, luckily enough, where I've torqued those, the flat of each nut is on basically where the locking tab is, so that's good. Just get a screwdriver behind there, lever them up a little bit more, and then what I'll do is I'll maybe get a hammer and just tap them flat with a punch or something. It bends quite easy, but as I say, just starting them off sometimes can be tricky, but you can see by doing what I've done with the lifting them up slightly, it's made it very easy to do indeed, so that's good. What do I need? I need a little bar and a hammer. My favourite tool, the hammer. Go. It's a little bit more rounded than I'd like it to be, if I'm honest. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get something flat on there. Just give it a little, so it's proper locked up to the side of the nut, you know. That one went a lot better. Using this is better than that round one, I've just found out. In fact, what we can do now, take that off, and we can turn that round to make it easier to knock them down rather than try and knock them sideways, if that makes sense. Now you could just curve them a bit if you wanted to as well, just so that they're got even more contact with the nut, you know. I heard it. Anything you can do to aid it not turning is aim of the game, isn't it, really? So there we go. I think that should be pretty secure. So on this friction plate, you've obviously got one side that sticks out and one side that's flat. The flat side is the flywheel side. So that would obviously go on that way like that. Now really, and ideally, you'd need a clutch alignment tool to put this in. In fact, I have got a clutch alignment tool, I might use that. But the better thing you can use sometimes, if you've got an old input shaft, then slot that in the middle, and obviously that helps things out a lot. To be honest, these aren't too bad. We did Dan's one and we did it by eye. It actually worked out better than using the tool, because in fact they haven't got a lot of movement on them. They're quite sort of centralised anyway, so I think I'm just going to go with it and hope for the best. I mean, you can get your finger in the middle there and hold it roughly in the right place until you get it on them two dowels. Wherever the dowel's got at the bottom, has it gone? It's like that. You might have to give it a little bit of a tap, because obviously it's fairly tight on those dowels. Use a plastic hammer. Set one on. Set one on. And you can pretty much eyeball it. It's pretty much there anyway, to be honest with you. It's not far off at all. Let's go up slightly. So what you can do, if you get something in there, just hold it up in the air. That's enough. It's just resting in there and it's holding it up in the air. Obviously you want to get it as central as you can, so when you slide the gearbox on, it slots in nice, you know. What I'll do, I'll start a couple of these bolts off. We'll suck it down and hopefully it'll be in line. Allen headed socket for this, because these are Allen bolts. Why did they call them Allen bolts? A bloke called Allen who invented them. Yes, these things do go through my head. And it's worrying sometimes, I know. But there we are. That's better. So it's 7:30 seconds. In old money. And then I want to do these up slightly, just so obviously, so as I say, so I can send out that clutch. You'll never move it if you do it all the way. It's quite hard to move it now. Moves, eh? That's not bad, you know. Go up very slightly. Yep, I'm going to go with that. That's alright. So now we can tighten these all the way down. Right, after quite a lot of parts rummaging, I think I've got everything I need as far as the engine mounts and gearbox mounts to go on here. You can probably just about see in camera there, I've got a mount there, which is where the rear gearbox mount sits on. That is different on the 850 to the 700. The 700 one uses one single sort of bolt through mount, whereas this one has got two cotton mills that sit on top. So what I'm going to attempt to do now, assuming I'm up to it, is lift that onto this piece of wood, then reposition, and then we'll get it on the chassis hopefully. It'll be the first time this chassis has had an engine in it. Well, I test fitted it, but previous to that it'll be the first time it's had an engine in it for probably 30 plus years, I would have thought. So yeah, it's quite a big deal. I've left the starter motor off because I can't find starter motor bolts anywhere, so I've never had a starter motor fitted to it apart from temporary, and it makes it a bit lighter as well. Not much, but a bit. Alright, let's see what we can do with this. Get a good grip around it, that's the problem. Get it on that tyre. Get it onto there. Like that. And then I'm going to go over there. Hopefully get it where it needs to go. Problem is I need to stand where it needs to go. That's the only downside. Okay. So you can see the two cotton mill mounts on the front there, they go on these two bits here. Oh, I'd have to bolt on one of them. A nut rather. Got a nut on one. Not going to go on very well like that, is it? That one's not going on. Right. Try again. Gets heavier every time you lift it up. So close. There it is. Back is not quite in and far off. That was my finger. That's a grade 3 injury. No blood though, so that's alright. There we go, engine and box on the chassis, yes! I'm going to have a breather for a minute now because that was quite heavy. Right, after a bit of recovery time, I've got all 4 bolts done up on the mounts now, so that is all bolted on there, absolutely lovely. You can see it's on those 2 front cotton mill mounts down there, which I re-welded to that plate when I first did it. And then the 2 cotton mills at the back there, one there and one round there. So that is all in there, nice and secure, not wobbling anywhere. The whole chassis was moving then rather than just the engine, so those mounts are good. So next thing I think I'm going to do is possibly clean up the prop shaft, then I can get that painted and then we can get that fitted, and then that's the drive line in basically complete, which is absolutely mega. Now one thing I have noticed that I've got to do is tighten up this yoke on the axle, because I hadn't tightened that nut up in the middle there, so I've got to remember to do that. And I'm going to need to put some oil in the axle as well, and oil in the gearbox, because obviously I haven't done any of that yet. There's oil in the engine because obviously we ran it on the bench. So it is taking some big steps forward now, so that is absolutely superb. So I think, as I say, I'm going to do that, probably do that prop shaft next, quite possibly. I haven't 100% made my mind up on that yet, it could change again, but and then hopefully by the time I've done all that, the next lot of lacquer will have arrived and we can carry on lacquering the underside of this body, and then we can think about maybe putting it back together again. as far as the body and the chassis is concerned anyway. So yeah, I'm not sure 100% if I'm going to do that straight away yet or not, because I would really like to get the fuel tank in there, which sits here, which has now been powder coated the same colour as the chassis, so it looks really smart. And I want to run the fuel lines down the chassis while I've got it out as well, because obviously that'll make things a lot easier too. So yeah, there is still a long list of jobs to do, but it is getting smaller finally, so that is absolutely superb. I'm well chuffed. I can't believe how well that engine sits on there nice, and all the colours match nice. All the greys I did with the high temperature stuff on the engine, and the silvers obviously match the chassis nice as well, so I'm really chuffed with that. I've forgotten actually how good this chassis looked. It's been, I mean, I did all the welding on it, but it was galvanised and powder coated by a company that I used for the DeLorean, and so far out of everything on this restoration, those two jobs, the galv and powder coat, are the only two jobs I haven't done myself. Everything else I've just tried to do myself, and I have managed to do it. So once this van is restored, I can truly say, apart from two jobs, there may be more by the time I finished it, but I've done the majority of the restoration myself, so that is something to be proud of. If you've got a project like this and it's getting you down, or it's taking forever, just take a step back. Just do half an hour or an hour a day. Doesn't matter how long you spend on it a day, just do a little tiny bit each day, and you'll soon be surprised how quickly it mounts up as far as the progress, you know. Because I mean, I've only spent probably a couple of hours at it today so far, and look, I've got an engine and gearbox in the chassis, so it just shows you just that little bit each day, it makes a big difference overall. So if you think to yourself, oh, I haven't got time to finish my project, just get out in the garage for half an hour a day. Doesn't matter what you do, whether it's cleaning up something, cleaning up a part, painting a part, doesn't matter, it's all progress. So just look at the look at what I've got to deal with after we put this back together. I've got to sort this bodywork out, which is, I've done a majority of it before I started YouTube, so I've saved you from hours and hours of sanding and filling work, but I still need to do some more finishing off work on it, and then obviously get it primed and see what imperfections we've got after, and probably do a load more filler work on it. So there we go. So I managed to get that up in the air this time, as you saw, but I've managed to put it right over to one side so I can still actually get past it this time, whereas before it was right over near the washing machine, and obviously Mrs. MEC-TEC wasn't too happy about that. So this time around I've managed to get it over far enough I can just leave it hanging there, and it is out of the way as such, and I've got this end of the garage to work on. So I'm going to stop waffling, I'm going to go and do some more bits and bobs on this. Right, as you can see there now, I've spent a good bit of time cleaning this up. I didn't bother time-lapsing it because it took a fair while. It wasn't in too bad a condition. As you can see, it's come up absolutely lovely. The joints are all in good condition on it, so I'm not going to touch those. I'm just going to put a little bit of masking tape over these grease nipples on there, one at each end, and that should obviously stop that from getting filled up with paint. And then we're going to give it some smooth Hammerite in a can. Really good stuff, this. I'm going to give it a couple of coats of that, and then we should be hopefully dry for the morning to be able to bolt this on. And then that is another job ticked off the list, and another job that I haven't got to do laying on my back under the van, so that's always a bonus. Let's carry on. Right, it is the next day. You can see the prop shaft is pretty much dry. It's still very slightly got a little bit of softness to it, but I've got the heater blowing on it, so hopefully finish that off drying and we can get that fitted today. I've just been down to the old Halfords and got myself an exhaust hanger, as you can see there. Now the exhaust on these literally bolts on the manifold, runs down, and then it's got a stud on the back of the chassis under here, which is all that mounts that exhaust on. And I'm going to modify this strap so that I'll drill a hole in the top of it, and it's going to hang on there just like that, hang the exhaust off of it. Unfortunately, you can see that stud has been covered in powder coat. So that is going to be my next job. I need to get all the powder coat off of that I did put a nut on it, as you can see, so I can hopefully wind it off. I'm going to clean it off with a wire brush first, get the majority of it off, and hopefully wind that nut off, and that should redo the threads nicely. So I'm going to get that done. I'll come back to you in a minute. Right, as you can see there, got our thread cleaned up. I used a wire brush on a drill, and then I went over it with a dye to run the threads through again, because obviously the threads are full of galv. So I've done that. It's got a nut on there already, which I've left there, which this is bolted up to, so that's nice and strong. So that is all on there nice. Down the front, I've also used a dye on these threads on the manifold, so they're all nice and clean now. We've got a new gasket on there, and we've got our nuts and bolts obviously, and our exhaust is standing up here ready to go. So I'll get you set up on a tripod, and we'll see if we can get this exhaust on. Right, let's see what we can do with this. So I'm going to start off by attaching the body's moving. Start off by attaching the front end of the pipe. I'm not going to do it tight to start with, because obviously it's going to be hanging slightly where I've not got the back attached yet. So let's thread all this under the van. This exhaust has been in my way forever. I'm very pleased to get it back on the van out of the way. Right, a gasket on there. I'm just going to might have to prop the other end up slightly just to get it to start. Might be able to start it off actually. I don't want to put too much stress on this exhaust. Just start them off by hand. We've got one spring washer and then a nut, so it'll hopefully won't come undone. A couple of heat cycles will probably be fine anyway. Right, so that is on there and hanging. And we come to the back, and hopefully, now let's have a look at this. I might have to adjust this slightly because I've put the strap round that way and it needs to be round the other way, but that's all right. Just adjust that, get it that way round. Now, by the looks of it, I don't know how low this is going to be, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it on the hole that's there for now, and if it needs to come up once we've got the body on, obviously we'll know. It does look like it's going to want to come up, but just for now, so it's bolted on there. Obviously once the body's on, I can adjust it. So that looks very low to me. Right, okay, that's all right. We can sort that out once the body's on. I just want to get it on there for now so that it's on. Little M6 bolt I'm using here. Hopefully this is going to go through. Yeah, that's it. I haven't stuck to all metric or all imperial on this van, just because I haven't. It's just the way it is. I didn't see the point in making a knife half myself. If I didn't have the right size imperial, then I've just used metric. Right, turn that round again because it wasn't lining up very nicely with that bracket, so buzz that back up so it's tight for a minute. Like that. Buzz those front ones up. Now that's hanging. What size do we think that's going to be? That size. Yep, that is 1/2 inch. It's basically 13mm. That's not ideal. Oh, stud straight out the manifold. These manifolds are a nightmare for that. On Dan's one, we actually used a nut and a bolt on the open side, so I think that's what I'm going to have to do again. Because, as I say, this has just pulled the thread out of that. So we actually drilled his one out and put a nut and bolt on there. So that is exactly what I'm going to do on this. I think I'm not going to mess about trying to get a stud back in there. It's a pointless task. So I'll get a nut and a bolt sorted out for that, and then you can see at the back there. That's definitely going to want to come up. But I don't want to adjust that yet until, obviously, actually you can't see that on camera. See it down there. It's definitely going to want to be a bit higher, that strap, but we can sort that out once it's once the body's back on and I can see exactly where it's going to be. So I'm going to sort out a nut and bolt for that front, and then we should be good to go. Right, as you can see, we've got our new freshly painted prop shaft down here, looking absolutely marvellous. And I've cleaned up all the bolts. You can see those all on here, hopefully in camera. Yep. Give them a wire brush over. These bolts are like a funny shaped head on them, which lock into the corners of the prop shaft, so you haven't got to hold that end, which is really helpful. So I've got obviously 8 of those, 8 nuts and 8 spring washers. I might put a little bit of Loctite on each one just to give them a little bit of extra security on not coming undone. I've given these 2 sections a little coat of the grey paint along with this bit because I thought it looked naff against a nice new painted prop shaft. So they've had a little coat of paint. I've done up the nut on this now. That wasn't done up before. That is done up to precisely 20.5 ooga-doogas on the air gun. I don't know where it's done up to, but it's tight, put it that way. It's got Loctite on it as well, so that should be absolutely fine. So I'm going to crack on and get these bolts put in. Now, I've spoke to my mate Dan, and he said that the shorter end, which is this end, obviously is telescopic, goes on the gearbox end. So that is what we're going to do. Hopefully he's right. I'm sure he is. He usually is. So we'll get one nut on each end so I'm going to hold the prop, and then should make life a bit easier. Right, there we go. That is the prop shaft on. As you can see, I've used 4 M8 bolts on the front there. Their heads lock onto the back of that what do you call it, output shaft, I guess. Absolutely perfect, so that's great. I'm going to have to hold them when I'm doing them up. Got nylock nuts on them and little stainless steel washers as well, so that is on there. The rear ones have got those funny shaped bolts which fit around that rear yoke. The exhaust, I've done a nut and bolt on this side now, as you can see there. That is absolutely fine. Got a spring washer on there as well to stop it coming undone, so that should do the job on that. And then coming down to the back, you can see I've got 2 clamps on the exhaust silencer there. And coming down to the rear, I bought a generic exhaust hanger from Halfords, modified it to fit, and had to cut a bit off the end of it, and that is the rear exhaust mounted on there. So hopefully that is 2 more jobs ticked off the list. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do next. Possibly put the fan on the engine, maybe put the rad on. I have got to modify this section under here on the air scoop slightly, because I think that's going to hit it if I put the rad in, and I think I've made that slightly too far back, only probably by about 5mm, 10mm, not a lot. So I might just have to run an air saw along there just to take the edge off of that, so that it fits in with the rad on there. But once that's on, I think we're on to fuel line then, which obviously I need to run from the front to the back. I need to get the tank mounted. I've ordered a 12mm stainless steel rod to go through, because there's like a channel that goes right through the middle of the tank from this bracket here to this one over here, and then there's just 2 bolts that bolt through those 2 rear ones, and that's all that holds it in. So I've got some stainless steel rod so it won't rust. We're going to thread the ends of that. It's just plain rod, so we're going to thread the ends of it, put a couple of nylocks on each end. That will hold the tank in there nicely. We can then start running the fuel lines. I've not decided yet whether I'm going to run another conifer line, which is what I've made all the brake pipes out of, or whether I'm going to run a plastic line, which is actually a Reliant part. I think I'm leaning towards the conifer just because it will match what I've done already, and it won't ever need to be changed because it'll be metal and it won't rust because it's conifer. It's like a copper nickel alloy. It's really good stuff, that is. So that's what I'm leaning towards at the moment. It'll probably be a slightly bigger diameter than that one. I think that's 3/16 pipe. I think it wants to be more like 1/4 inch or something like that. I've got to look up the sizes properly. But yeah, I'm really chuffed with that. So it's really coming on now. So yeah, I don't know. We're still waiting for the other lacquer to turn up. So hopefully that will turn up before the end of this video, and we can finish lacquering the underside of that van. And I'll show you properly under there once it's all done. With a light or whatever, so you can see it all properly. But it is looking mega. I'm really chuffed about it's coming out. So this year, this is going to be on the road. I've decided it's got to be done this year, otherwise it's gone on for too long. Other projects keep coming up that I keep taking on. This one needs to be sorted out so I can free up a bit of space in the garage, get rid of all the surplus parts I've got, and generally have a big tidy up after it's done. So there we go, top banana. Right then, I think that's a good place to stop on this episode of MEC-TEC. We have made tons of progress on the old van. Now it's back apart yet again. As I said at the beginning of the episode, it wasn't the plan to ever take this back apart. It was supposed to be put it together and put the rest of it on after. But as it's turned out, it is so much easier to work on with it apart. So I'm pleased we've done it, and obviously I couldn't have painted the underside of that shell with the chassis still on there. So in the next episode on the van, we're hopefully going to be able to get the fuel tank in, the starter motor on, the alternator on, the pedals for the clutch and brake can go on the chassis before the chassis goes on the body, because then it's a lot easier to do that while that's off. I've got to run a fuel line down the chassis, obviously to link the fuel tank with the front, the carb. And then I think we're almost there on the chassis actually being complete and being able to go back in the body. And obviously once that's back in again, then we can start getting things like the electrics, dash clocks, switches, steering column, all that sort of thing in. So it is going to hopefully move at a reasonable pace. The only thing that's going to obviously slow it down is going to be time consuming, is the bodywork. But I just wanted to get it running and driving at least now, so that I can move it about and I can work on it a little bit easier. And obviously the bodywork, I've done all the underside of the body now, so there's nothing's got to be touched on it. I can mask it all up, and we can do all the exterior body work and all the interior stuff in here whilst it's together, and it's obviously a running van, so that is going to be absolutely superb. I'm quite excited to get this on. It's going to be on the road this year. I'm determined to get this on the road this year. I've been saying it for the last 3 years now, and it's got to be done. We need to free up the garage space for new projects, of course. I haven't got one yet, but there will be one coming up, I'm sure, soon. I've got me on a car that I found about a year ago. In fact, not quite a year ago yet, but I've spoke to the guy and he wasn't that sure if he wants to sell it. So watch this space on that one. You never know, it might happen. I'm going to go and see him again maybe in a couple of months time and see whether I can twist his arm to let it go. Anyway, I'm waffling. If you do like projects like this, the cab, the Puma, the DeLorean, anything, have a look at my backlist. I've got over 90 videos now. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. That really helps me out on the channel. I do really appreciate it. And obviously share the channel with your friends. If you've got people who like cars, projects, mechanical stuff, all that sort of thing, then send them a link to my channel and just say, have a watch of this. If they're really bored and they want to go to sleep one night, then they can watch me. Anyway, if you do want to do that, it'd be absolutely superb. And obviously if you want to find me on Instagram, I've got MEC_TEC1985, and I have got Facebook MEC-TEC for little sneak peeks during the week of what I'm up to. And all that's left for me to say is thank you very much for watching, and if you want to join me soon for more automotive adventures, I'll see you again next time. Cheers guys.